Hello, ELA. I'm going to do a really quick little video to introduce this module and run you through some slides. This is the module for October 12th, 2022, and it's going to involve data deep dives and using some of your interim information. So let's just jump right into this little small slideshow I made. I'm also going to post this slideshow on Google Classroom so that you'll have access to all these links. But let's just jump right in. Okay, welcome. All right, today I'm going to help you familiarize with the data deep dive process, a little bit of the how, a little bit of the why. I'm going to show you some forms and some tools that you can use and ask you to choose one of those to complete your work today. I'm also going to model some access to the data, which for the sake of this could be in a couple places, and we'll look at that on those slides. Likely going to come from interim 1, however, and in doing so, you'll be inside of Illuminate test platform. Okay, so some of the potential inputs that you're going to want to gather before you start making some conclusions about how your students have done thus far in the year would include the following data points. It could be some or all of these. Interim 1, which we are taking currently in October at the beginning here. But then you'll have interim 2 and 3 down the road to continue this process. You'll also have some optional summative tests that are part of unit design for unit 1. They are available in StudySync. You may or may not have completed those by this time. And then there's some iReady data that I think, depending on your grade level, is part of the conclusions you're drawing about your students. There's also classroom data, much of which could be standard aligned. And when you're certain of those measures and how sure you are of what standards they're measuring, even more useful in this data deep dive process. There's also common formative assessment data that many schools have chosen to create or utilize based on what's in the curriculum or other ways that they have created more checks for understanding. And we don't want to forget, as we are part of ELA, that also writing samples could be a very valuable input as you're starting to draw conclusions about how our students are doing. What you'll notice in this page is a little small icon that says getting poolside. Pardon me. And what's really cool about poolside as like a view of data is really you can see how everyone starts in the similar race and performs differently. So when you get down to the data based on how everybody did in the past and you look at it more closely, I've heard curricular discussions around how that's something called getting poolside. Okay, the data deep process seeks to answer some specific questions. Here are 3 of them, really simple. Which students, which standards, and which strategy? You can see it looks like person over on the corner might be scratching their head contemplating that a little bit. So moving forward, how will you use class time to support students on standards that need more instruction? What ways will you check for understanding? And what else might you need to change about the delivery of instruction to provide more specialized attention to those who might need it most? Okay, there are 3 data analysis tools, really 2. The one on the bottom is just a guide that is very long about how to use the one that I cropped out that's in the middle that says iReady data tool. So I'm going to preview those for you on the next slide. Let's look at them closely. Okay, the first form, when you click on it, you're going to notice this is what pops up. This is a cool way that you can make documents so that when your students click on them, they don't all have the same one. They have a copy, and you'll notice at the very top up here where I put a little picture on my screen where I'm making my cursor go, all I did was took away the word edit and added the word copy, and then I highlighted and copied that link, and that's why when I send it to you, it makes you have to copy it. Okay, so you'll have your own copy and it'll look like this. That way you can write directly in it. And there's a part 1 and a part 2. So please notice the way it's organized is for it to grow and fill in with information as you go. But it's also a better version that's kind of consolidated, and it's really just a 1 or 2 page document now. So on the left are the questions that you want to consider as you move down the page and get deeper into your data. Make sure that those are the questions you're using to kind of help lead your study of the data as you find it. Okay, we're going to go to the next slide, which is just really part two. And again, leading questions for you to zoom in on and be as specific as possible about with the data, which students, and then how you're going to take action. It's also a chance to think about what other things we've tried until now. And if small groups or station rotation or some of those other options have not been exhausted, remember those might be great ways for us to be able to get to various learners all within one class period. Okay, this is the second tool. And if you use iReady, you might want to use this tool and it might be more familiar to you. It basically asks you very similar questions down the left margin, and you're to fill those in. Same thing on page 2, part 2, is you're really starting to focus more on the data and the moves that you're going to make based on that data. And then a final piece of that is to reflect back on some of your efforts. And so this is the page 3 of this, I think, 4-page possible document for you from iReady. And then really a thing that, depending on your comfort level, we could really see some power in doing is to do some grouping and maybe even some stations where we're doing different practice based on data. And you're kind of giving a different look at what a class period could cover based on some of your decisions of how you're going to need to address various data with different people. Okay. All right. So we're going to go into Illuminate real quick. And I'm going to try to just give you a quick overview on how to get in there and use this data. I will tell you, after working with teachers, here are 4 handy points to consider. It's easier in Illuminate when you locate the test that you're looking for first, before you try to go in and make a report. After you find the test, it'll be much easier for you to make the report because the view is just easier to follow when you're in Illuminate and you've already found your test. From my point of view, that helps it feel a little less complicated and a little more focused because you're already in the test that you're looking at most specifically. Okay. When we get in there, there's a screen that focuses on teacher reports, and probably the 2 most likely teacher reports that you will choose would be matrix report or frequency report. Okay, so on this page, you'll see a picture of what the login will look like, and I also included the link directly to the KC Public Schools one. That way you can offer that to your students and to yourself and know that you're going directly in from this link instead of searching around a little bit. Once you get in, you'll see on the far right that it's a dashboard that looks kind of like puzzle tiles and all different colors. It'll have your name and you know you're in. All I do and all you do to log in is choose your Google SSO at the bottom of this login. You'll see right there, and that'll get you in the program. Okay. So after I show you Illuminate, I'm going to ask you to start your deep dive. In order to do so, you're going to go into these slides and choose a form. You're going to collect some test data out of the various places we talked about. You're going to dig in and analyze that information. You're going to potentially, if available, discuss with peers and PLCs or during common plan some of the conclusions that you're drawing. And then you're going to jump in for the rest of this interim period before we get to interim 2 and really take action on some of the data that you've discovered. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go into Illuminate and show you how to basically get to some of the data. Okay, I'm going to share again once I get in there. Let's go. Okay. Share again. Go. Okay, so similar to what I showed you in the picture, there's that login. I'm going to go directly down here just to the Google part. And it's going to take me in. Okay, once we're driving around in here, this is where I say if you go find your assessment first, you'll have a much better time than just trying to go to create reports or something from this screen. I think that's kind of something we figured out as coordinators, and I would certainly suggest it if you want to try that. So I just go into here to this gray tab. I'm going to do view assessments. I'm going to have a lot more than you do because I am the coordinator. And you'll see that not all of the assessments are active or even being tested right now. So I'm going to click over on these ones that have data, and I'm going to go up here and search for like an old one. And I'm going to go back and see if we have any of those. I'm going to just go into 08 ELA. I really don't need anything but just an example. Okay, those are all archived from the past. Let me think about this for a minute. You know what? I'll come back on in just a second after I figure out how to make that video. Let me see if I can find active data. I should have checked before I started making this. But that's cool. I'll do a real small clip and add it on at the end of this Nearpod. Everything else has been useful to this point, I hope, and I'll see you in just a second.